Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. And today, guys, I am here to give you a ranking list, a top 9, a rad 9 movies of 1994. I'm going to be doing my top 9 movies that came out in the year of 1994. Why 9? Well, because I have an answer for that. The Rad Pack, my friends over at the Rad Pack podcast channel, which you should go check them out. I will link their channel down below in the description. They're a fun, nostalgic, 80s, 90s based nostalgic collective that get together at least once or twice a month and they talk about, movies from the 80s, from the 90s. They just talk about nostalgia and it's a good time over there at the Rad Pack pod. Like I said, I will link them down below. It is made up of Garrett from Born to Be Rad, Mel from My Killer Podcast, and Justin from The Dead Couch, or Justin David is his YouTube channel. I've had all three of them on this channel before on various streams and other activities that I've done on this channel, which you can go back and check out, roundtables and World's Biggest Collectors and all that stuff that I used to do back in the day that I hope to bring back to the channel at some point in the future. But they put out the challenge. I think they were doing their top 10 of 1984, and they said, let's fast forward 10 years. It is the 30th anniversary of the year of 1994, and let's challenge the movie community, people that have channels, people that have Instagram accounts, or just whoever. Like, if you want to send them your top 9, your rad 9, I'm sure they would accept that. But if you have a channel, if you have an Instagram, if you have some sort of social media account, you just have to post your top 9 movies from 1994, tag them in it, and they will share it on their accounts. So that's pretty cool. And I am game to join in on this challenge because 1994 is, in fact, an incredible year for film. And it's a very important year for me personally because I feel like these were very formative years for me. I was 8 or 9 years old. Like, these were the building blocks, the movies that made me fall in love with movies. Like, this is where it happened. Like, these are the years that I started to watch film and really start to pay attention to stuff and really just fall in love with the art form. So there are several movies in my Rad 9 from 1994 that have been with me since I was 8 or 9, and I've been watching them since then. There are some I discovered maybe 2 or 3 years later, and there are a couple, well, maybe just one, I can't quite remember, that I discovered within like the past 5 or 6 years, but most of these I've been watching since I was a kid. So this is going to be a fun video to do for sure. But before we get into it, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, hit the subscribe button. I do a lot of fun physical media based content on this channel that you'll like. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and then comment down below, guys. What is your top 9 movies from 1994? If you have a channel, if you have an Instagram, a social media account of some kind, and you want to do your top 9, just remember to tag the Rad Pack or the Rad Pack pod in whatever you do to let them know that you are taking part in the challenge. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. I do have a physical stack of 7 of the 9, but there are 2 movies from 1994 that I don't have in the collection that I'm actually ashamed that I do not have in the collection. So I need to get on those and add those to the collection sooner rather than later. But my number 9, there's a good reason I don't have this. It's because I was never in the Disney Movie Club. This is a Disney film. I don't know if this ever had a DVD. I imagine it probably did back in the day, but there are a lots of movies from this year that I could have chose to take this spot, this number 9 spot. I'm kind of calling it the childhood nostalgia spot. These are movies that aren't necessarily great films, but there were all kinds of these really awesome like kid movies that we would watch back in the day, not just cartoons. I don't feel like they make movies like this anymore. Live action movies for kids, with kids going on adventures, things happening to them, just cool storylines that kids can relate to. They don't make that kind of stuff anymore. In 1994, they had them by the truckload. Like, I'm thinking of films like Little Giants, Blank Man. There was a bunch of them, a bunch of movies that I saw when I was looking up on IMDb. But I wanted to choose one that I felt really spoke to me when I was the age when I watched it, when I was 8 years old when I watched this film. And that is Blank Check. I love the movie Blank Check. I've often said on this channel, I would love Disney to do like a Vinegar Syndrome style packaged edition, a 4K edition of Blank Check. That is my dream. If they did that, I would buy it and then I would be done. That is all I would need, is a 4K edition of Blank Check. I love this movie so much. You know, it's a childhood fantasy. You're living out this fantasy of having $1 million with this 8 or 9-year-old. I think he might be like 9 or 10, maybe 11 years old in the movie, but he was close to my age. So I'm watching this kid with all this money. I'm living vicariously through him. I'm thinking to myself, what would I do with $1 million? And it's just a really fun movie. And it's like, of course, what would you do with $1 million if you're 10 or 11 years old? Of course, you're going to buy a mansion. You're going to buy a roller coaster and put it in your backyard. These are the things that you're going to do. So I just related to this movie, even though I never had $1 million, but it's like, you can imagine what would you do if you had that much money? So it's such a interesting premise for a child to watch, and I instantly attached myself to it. But I watch Blank Check like all the time. It was just one of my favorite childhood movies. So even though the movie, like, I haven't seen it in maybe 10 years or so, I might have watched it when Disney Plus came out. I might have went back and rewatched it. I'm sure the movie doesn't hold up as like a masterpiece of cinema, but it is a movie that's super nostalgic to me, and one that I definitely wanted to put into the top 9. I wanted to put one of these movies that I grew up with in my Rad 9. So Blank Check is my number 9, and I need a physical version of that sooner rather than later. I might have to break down and go on eBay to find the Disney Movie Club Blu-ray or something. But let's move on to my number 8. This is the one that I watched recently. This is a John Carpenter movie that came out in 1994. A lot of people say this is his last great film, and I would probably agree with that. I like vampires, but I think that this movie is legitimately great, and I don't think he reached this level of greatness after this movie, and that is In the Mouth of Madness. So I desperately want Scream Factory to do a 4K of this. They just announced Village of the Damned. I'm like, can we get In the Mouth of Madness on 4K, please? But yeah, this is a great addition though by Scream Factory. Tons of great special features and stuff, and the artwork on it is super sick. But I watched this movie for the first time when this Scream Factory Blu-ray came out, and I was just taken aback. I'm like, this movie is freaking awesome. Like, it really kind of goes back to like The Thing, as far as like John Carpenter's special effects capabilities. Like, he was really creating creatures and monsters in this that were kind of reminiscent of The Thing. So I really enjoyed it for that, but it's just a really cool, like, supernatural, otherworldly movie. And you got Sam Neill in this film, who is just excellent. So I really love In the Mouth of Madness. I really need to rewatch it because I'm like 6 or 7 years removed from seeing it. And I'm honestly like forgetting certain things about the story right now as I talk about it. I just know I really dug it and I really liked it. So I wanted to throw it in my Rad 9 because it's a really cool movie from 1994. And I think as far as John Carpenter films, it doesn't get the love and appreciation that it deserves. So this is my number 8, In the Mouth of Madness. Now coming at number 7, guys, look, I wanted to leave this off the list, but it's like, I can't leave this off the list. It's one of the most iconic Disney movies of all time. And when I was a kid, I watched the hell out of this movie. I watched it over and over again. But The Lion King, it's like there are some movies that are just undeniable. And as much as it irritates me, because I think this movie is just a tad overrated. I think that everybody talks about this movie. It's the best Disney movie. Aladdin is my personal favorite Disney animated movie. But I can't deny this movie. It is a great animated film. The music is great. Elton John, you got a great original score by Hans Zimmer. All the original songs in this film. You got the voice cast, Matthew Broderick, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. You got freaking, I'm blanking on his name. Darth Vader, James Earl Jones in this movie as Mufasa. You got Jeremy Irons as Scar, who just plays such a great villain. But it is such a fantastic animated movie. You can't deny its greatness. And I watched it all the time when I was a kid. I really, really love The Lion King. I just wish that people would maybe discover some other great Disney animated films. People know Aladdin for sure, but like Hercules, Mulan, like some of those other Disney animated movies, I don't feel like get the same level of respect. And they were honestly like just as great. Like they were up there with The Lion King. I used to watch them all the time. Little Mermaid, the animated movie, but The Lion King feels like it gets all the credit. and probably for good reason. It is a great movie, and I had to put it in my Rad 9. Number 7 is The Lion King. Now, coming in at number 6 is another movie that I do not have. So I used to have a DVD collection of this movie with a gigantic X on the front of it, and that is Clerks. Clerks is my number 6 movie. So this is another one, Kevin Smith's first movie. The first Kevin Smith movie that I ever watched was Mallrats, but shortly after Mallrats, I discovered Clerks. And when I discovered Clerks, my entire world changed. Like the way that they talked in the movie Clerks, it was like the way that I would talk to my friends about movies, that I imagine that everybody would talk to each other about movies. It just felt so real, so down to earth, like you were there watching people have like actual conversations, not movie conversations, but actual conversations with each other. I was probably, I have to say 12 or 13 when I first watched it, maybe 13 or 14 when I first watched Clerks, but I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the comedy, thought it was absolutely fantastic just from beginning to end. I love movies that are shot in one location. I thought the black and white aesthetic was a cool choice, even though it was a budget decision by Kevin Smith because he didn't have the money to shoot in color. But it's a great movie. Like when I discovered movies like Clerks and Reservoir Dogs, it kind of opened my mind to this independent film scene of the 1990s. That is when my mind really started honing in on what actual filmmaking and movie making was, and really like getting into directors and stuff like that. Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith, when I discovered them is when I really got into wanting to know like who directed this movie, who directed that. And I watched all their movies. Like those are the people that I watched the most movies from. Every time a Quentin Tarantino movie came out, which we may be mentioning one of his movies later on, or a Kevin Smith movie came out, I watched it immediately. So Clerks has to be on this list. Hilarious movie. So many quotable scenes and moments in this film. 37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks in a row. Just that stuff all throughout the film. If I thought about it enough, because I'm losing my ability to quote films the older I get. I could think of more, but Clerks is my number 6 now, and I need a physical copy of that. I used to have that DVD collection edition. I freaking sold all my DVDs like an idiot like 8 years ago, and I regret it every single day. I used to have Dogma 2 on DVD, and we all know how that worked out. I still don't have that back in the collection. Hopefully they do a 4K of that and Clerks at some point in the very near future. But look, let's get into my number 5. I did not want to put all of this gentleman's 1994 films in my Rad 9, even though I probably could have and been happy with it because I love all those movies. But I picked one Jim Carrey movie from 1994 to put in my Rad 9. And what is more rad than The Mask? Stanley Ipkiss in this film. I love The Mask so much. I love Ace Ventura. I love Dumb and Dumber. Like, all the movies make me laugh, but The Mask was something truly special to me. This was one I watched all the time. It's an adventure movie. It's kind of a superhero movie as well, before superhero movies were like super popular. And I feel like Jim Carrey in this movie was just a little bit different than he was in anything else. He was a little bit more relatable, a little bit more down to earth. He wasn't such a idiot in the film. He was a little bit more serious. Like, you know, in Ace Ventura, he's a little serious in Ace Ventura, like maybe for 2 minutes of the movie. But Dumb and Dumber, like he's just dumb the entire film. This, I feel like Stanley Ipkiss, like the balancing act between the seriousness of Stanley Ipkiss and the goofiness of the Mask character really worked for me. And I feel like it's got kind of the same thing as Liar Liar. I feel like it balances the comedy and the acting, the dramatic acting capabilities of Jim Carrey just perfectly in this film. But the special effects were great. The makeup effects were great. Visually, the movie just looks fantastic. And I love The Mask. I want this movie on 4K. So I had to include this one in my Rad 9 at number 5, The Mask. Now let's get into the top 4. This is where things are really going to start heating up, and you may see some of those 3 films nominated for Best Picture. This one really kills me to put this low at number 4 because I love this movie so much, and it's so iconic. I imagine a lot of people are going to have this one at number 1, but coming at number 4 is Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. I love this film. I absolutely love this film. It is a great film. Rewatching it though, this is one I watch all the time. I loved Reservoir Dogs. I love Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, obviously when those came out. But watching this one more recently, I watched it back in 2022 when this 4K came out. I think the John Travolta, Uma Thurman stuff is like masterclass, masterpiece level cinema. The Bruce Willis stuff in the middle always drags the movie down just a hair for me, just a hair. It's great, but I think it kind of breaks up what I love about the film in the first act. The second act does, and then we get back into it again with Sam Jackson in the third act. But the Bruce Willis stuff always just slows the movie down just a tad for me. I still like it. But it slows it down just a little bit and kind of makes it into a different movie. And I still love it though, guys. It's such a great film. Pulp Fiction, one of the smartest scripts of all time. It really kind of created this new way of storytelling. Just how you go frontwards and backwards and sideways with your storytelling, non-linear storytelling, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Even though Reservoir Dogs did that as well. But Pulp Fiction, I feel like, did it the most seamless. So that's why it gets a little bit more credit. But I love everybody in the film. Everybody's fantastic. John Travolta is fantastic. This was the renaissance for John Travolta. This was the coming out party for Samuel L. Jackson. Everybody realized the greatness of what Samuel L. Jackson could do as an actor after this film. But such a great movie, such a great soundtrack. The music's spectacular. Pulp Fiction is my number 4. What else can you say about it? Coming at number 3, this is a true masterpiece of a film. And that is The Shawshank Redemption. I love The Shawshank Redemption so freaking much. It is such a great movie. I like The Green Mile just a little bit more. I just like the ending of The Green Mile, like where we end with The Green Mile. I think it hits just a little bit harder than Shawshank Redemption does, but they're really like neck and neck. And if you told me Shawshank was better than Green Mile, like I really can't argue with you. They're both great movies, but Shawshank Redemption, I love this movie. It really is something special. Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman are so great. Like, as much as this movie's hyped up and people talk about it, like, I can't deny it. Like, it's just such a fantastic movie. I watched it a couple of years ago when the 4K came out. Hadn't seen it for probably about 10 years. But it's such a great film that hits every single time I watch it. The music's so fantastic. The performances are so good. And they just don't make movies like this anymore. I wish they did. I wish I didn't have to say stuff like that. But they just don't make movies like Shawshank Redemption. To be honest, they don't make movies like any of the movies that I'm talking about in this stack anymore. And it's really depressing. But Shawshank Redemption, undeniable. That is my number 3. So coming in at my number 2, and you're going to see where I stand on this whole Oscar debates with the 3 movies. But number 2 for me is Forrest Gump. And I still got my VHS tape right here of Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest, run. The older I get, the farther removed I get from the release of this film. I don't think a lot of people understand the impact, the cultural impact that Forrest Gump had when it came out. Like, it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about Forrest Gump. Everybody was quoting Forrest Gump. My entire family was talking about Forrest Gump. You had all kinds of shows like Saturday Night Live and Mad TV that were parodying Forrest Gump. Movies were parodying Forrest Gump. It was everywhere. It was everywhere. Like, it took over the world. But the farther removed I get from the cultural phenomena that was Forrest Gump, the more I just appreciate this movie for its storytelling capabilities, Tom Hanks's performance, how it plays with the timeline of all these events in American history, how it incorporates Forrest Gump into all of those events, how it weaves the story of Forrest Gump with all of these events and makes it flow so seamlessly that when you get done watching this film, like, you feel like you just watched a biography, like you feel like Forrest Gump is a real life historical figure. And that's the power of Forrest Gump. Like, it's such a powerful film from beginning to end. It's such an iconic film with such a great soundtrack. And it honestly, like, upsets me now when people want to talk bad about this film. Like, I feel like there were people that tried to step up a few years ago and say Forrest Gump wasn't that good. It didn't deserve Best Picture. And I think that's bullshit. Like, Best Picture should be Best Picture. Like all around, it should be the reception, the impact that the movie had when it came out. It shouldn't just be like, was this film critically accepted and all the critics love it, which all the critics did love it, but this was accepted by the audiences, by the critics. It was a box office juggernaut. It took over the culture. It is still relevant today. People still talk about this film as one of the greatest films of all time. So to me, as much as I love Shawshank and as much as I love Pulp Fiction, I think that Forrest Gump is the all-around great film of 1994 and should have won Best Picture. So this one has to be my number 2 right here. Forrest Gump is a juggernaut of a film. It's a fantastic film. Tom Hanks, man. Tom Hanks is so great in this film. And directed by Robert Zemeckis, who is just one of the most underrated directors to me because he did this and Castaway and the Back to the Future movies and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Romancing the Stone, Death Becomes Her, What Lies Beneath. Like, that dude has so many great films on his resume. It's a shame that, you know, pretty much after into the 2010s, he kind of just petered and away. But he's got that new movie coming out, guys, with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. That's kind of acting as a spiritual successor to Forrest Gump, which I actually am kind of excited to check out. But Forrest Gump, to me, guys, is the all-around great American film, celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and I just love it so much. That is my number 2. But I'm sure you're saying to yourself, Ken, you just talked up Forrest Gump like that, and that's not even your number 1. No, it is not. Coming in at my number 1, guys, you guys are going to hate me for this. You're going to bash me in the comment section, but I don't care. I fucking love this movie so much, so freaking much, and that is Speed. Speed is my number 1. This is my favorite action movie. This, to me, is just pure entertainment from beginning to end. I rewatch this movie just as much as I rewatch Twister, like over and over again. Speed, I watched all the time. I'm often asked on this channel, Ken, how have you not seen this? How have you not seen that? How have you not seen this? When I was a kid, guys, and going into really my early 20s, I had movies that I loved, and it's like I only wanted to watch those movies over and over again, and Speed was one of those, Twister was one of those, Broken Arrow was one of those, Star Wars, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, like those are the movies I wore out over and over again. And there's other movies too, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like there's so many movies I could rattle off that I watched over and over again, but I didn't like when I discovered movies that I liked. I just kept watching them and I didn't veer out of my comfort zone very often. So it wasn't until I got into my mid 20s to late 20s that I started to veer off and really try to discover these movies that I missed my entire life. But Speed is one I've been watching since the very beginning. Such a fun film with such a great dynamic between Keanu Reeves and the villain, who's played by Dennis Hopper, who's so fantastic. The villain of my childhood. I call him because he was the villain in this and Super Mario Brothers, and also Waterworld as well, which I love watching Waterworld when I was a kid. But I love the chemistry with Keanu and Sandra Bullock. I love how this movie is really like 3 big action set pieces in one movie. You have the elevator at the beginning. You have the big bus set piece, which is such a cool idea. Like the bus drops below 55 and the bus blows up. Like it's so simple, but it's so freaking awesome because they have to keep moving in the ways that they have to create in the film to keep the bus moving. Just makes some really awesome, interesting scenarios and some really fun action set piece moments. So you have the bus and then you have the subway set piece at the end. So I just thought this was a great action film from beginning to end. Rewatched this 4K a couple of years ago. And this is a movie that I don't go too long without watching. I try to watch this one every 2 or 3 years, but watching it 3 years ago, the 4K just reinforced to me how great this movie is, how much this movie stands the test of time. Jeff Daniels in this film as well is fantastic, which the very same year he did Dumb and Dumber. So that just shows you the range of Jeff Daniels because he's so serious in this movie. But I love Speed so much, guys. It's so close to my heart. It's like Twister. Like it's just such a close to my heart movie that I've watched over and over again. And when I was thinking to myself, what do I put at number 1? Forrest Gump or Speed? What is the movie I want to watch right now? I say to myself, Speed, every single time. That is my favorite film of 1994, Speed. So there you have it, guys. That is my Rad 9. I hope I completed this challenge adequately. Thank you so much, the Rad Pack, for inviting all of us to take part in this challenge. Definitely go subscribe to their channel. I will link it down below. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video, guys. Comment down below your favorite films of 1994. If you want to put 9 or 18 or 27, whatever. Let me know in the comment section below. Turn on bell notifications for all future videos and follow me on all of my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.